Welcome to the Marketing Behind Rapid Growth, the podcast where we explore the strategies, decisions, and growth engines behind some of the world's most successful technology companies. Today, we're talking about Cloudways. Picture this. It's 3 a.m. A website has gone down. Somewhere, an agency owner is staring at a screen full of error logs, trying to remember which server configuration they changed 6 months ago, knowing that when their client wakes up, there's going to be an angry email waiting. This wasn't a hypothetical for Akib Garit. It was Tuesday. It was Thursday. It was every other week for years. Before he founded Cloudways, Garit ran a digital agency. And what he lived through, he later called IT horror stories. Backups that vanished. Servers that crumbled without warning. Weekends lost to infrastructure that almost nobody on his team actually understood. That specific kind of pain has a name in this story, the 3 a.m. problem. And it's where we start, because understanding that problem, really sitting with it, is the only way to understand why Cloudways became what it became. Let's set the scene a little more. In the early 2000s, the hosting world was split into 2 camps. On one side, you had the giants, Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, enormous power, enormous scalability, but also enormous complexity. Command lines, orchestration layers, a level of technical sophistication that assumed you had an enterprise IT department behind you. On the other side, you had cheap shared hosting, easy to use. Practically anyone could sign up, but it buckled the moment real traffic showed up. If you were a small business or an agency managing dozens of client sites, you were stuck between these 2 worlds. Too small for the enterprise tools, too ambitious for the shared hosting. Garit and his co-founders looked at that gap and reached a conclusion that would define the next decade of their work. The problem wasn't a shortage of infrastructure. The problem was a shortage of abstraction. Nobody had built the layer that made enterprise-grade power usable by a non-technical business owner. That single insight became the founding thesis of Cloudways. Small and medium businesses should be able to offer the same digital experience as the tech giants, without needing to hire the tech giants' engineering teams. Now here's where the story gets strategically interesting. When Cloudways launched in 2012, they made a decision that looked almost backwards for a hosting company. They chose not to own any hardware. Think about how counterintuitive that is. In an industry where hosting traditionally meant racks of servers in a data center you controlled, Cloudways said, "We're not going to compete with AWS or Google Cloud. We're going to sit on top of them." This was a platform as a service play, but built with a very specific customer in mind. The time-strapped small business owner and the overwhelmed digital agency drowning in client sites. Cloudways built a SaaS automation layer over raw cloud infrastructure. They used APIs to provision virtual machines, wrapped it all in a proprietary performance stack they called Thunderstack, and delivered something that felt almost magical for its time. Enterprise-grade hosting with one-click simplicity. There was a real trade-off here. Without owning hardware, Cloudways was dependent on its infrastructure partners whenever something physically broke, but the upside outweighed that risk by a wide margin. Customers got what the company called your platform, your rules. Want DigitalOcean for the price-performance ratio? Fine. Prefer Google Cloud for low latency? Also fine. Same Cloudways interface, either way. That multi-cloud flexibility became their first real differentiator, and it planted a strategic seed that would grow into something much bigger. The idea that the real value in a commodity market doesn't come from the commodity itself. It comes from whoever makes that commodity usable. Now let's talk about how they grew. Because this is where Cloudways stops being just an infrastructure story and becomes a masterclass in marketing strategy. The team made an early observation that changed everything. Digital agencies weren't simply customers. They were distribution channels. Think about it from the agency's perspective. An agency managing 50 client websites was living Garit's old horror story every single day, multiplied by 50. If Cloudways could solve that agency's pain, it wasn't just landing one customer. It was landing a multiplier. Someone who would bring their entire client roster along, site after site, project after project. So Cloudways stopped marketing hosting. They started marketing something more emotional and more resonant. Peace of mind and reclaimed time. That messaging shift was backed by real product investment, the Agency Partner Program. This wasn't just a discount tier, it gave agencies specialized workflows, granular permission controls for team members, and automated billing tools built specifically for people managing many client accounts at once. And here's the part that really sets Cloudways apart strategically. The marketing team wasn't just crafting messages downstream of the product. They were feeding insight upstream into the product itself. When agencies complained about how much time they lost to client invoicing, Cloudways didn't respond with a blog post about productivity hacks. They built a client billing and reporting tool directly into the platform. That's a subtle but powerful distinction. Most companies treat marketing as the function that sells what engineering builds. Cloudways treated marketing as a listening post, a function embedded deeply enough in the agency community to hear what pain needed to be killed next. Educational marketing and product evolution became the same conversation, running on a tight feedback loop. Of course, no growth story is without tension. And Cloudways had a real one to navigate. As the company scaled past 570,000 hosted websites, they faced the perennial challenge of any managed service, justifying the premium. Cloudways was charging a markup over raw server costs, in some cases as high as 220%. To the average customer, that premium was easy to justify. Simplicity, support, performance, worth paying for. But their most technical users noticed things. Some observed that the platform tended to recommend 4 gigabyte servers for production sites that could often run comfortably on 2 gigabytes. Some called it a naughty upsell. This put Cloudways at a genuine crossroads. Push too hard on margin, and you risk alienating your most sophisticated users, the very people whose trust underwrites your credibility in technical communities. Play it too safe, and you undercut the profitability that funds everything else. Their answer was to keep moving up the value chain rather than defending the markup directly. They invested in performance features that a raw, unmanaged server simply couldn't offer. Tools like Object Cache Pro and an architecture called the Lightning Stack, which the company said could speed up WordPress admin interfaces by roughly a third. The pitch shifted from "we charge more" to "here's what that premium actually buys you." And they attacked the other side of the equation too: friction. Switching hosting providers is one of the most anxiety-inducing decisions a business can make, so Cloudways removed the 2 biggest barriers standing in the way: a 3-day free trial that didn't require a credit card, and a free, no-downtime migration service that took the technical burden of switching entirely off the customer's plate. By the time that trial period ended, the customer had already felt the speed improvements. They'd already watched their site run smoothly on new infrastructure. The managed premium didn't feel like a cost anymore. It felt like a bargain, because the value had already been proven before any money changed hands. Now fast forward to 2024, and the ground shifts again. By this point, artificial intelligence wasn't a buzzword floating around industry conferences. It was becoming an operational expectation. And Cloudways recognized something important. Even with all their abstraction, all their simplified interfaces, server management was still fundamentally reactive. A site would go down, a human would notice, and a human would fix it. That's not good enough anymore. So Cloudways pivoted toward autonomous operations, partnering with AI-driven site reliability platforms to launch what they called Cloudways Copilot. Not a chatbot bolted onto a dashboard, an AI-native execution layer, continuously monitoring web stacks and disk health in the background. The signature moment of this pivot was a feature called Smart Fix. If the system detected something like a DDoS attack or a failing disk, it didn't stop at sending an alert. It offered one-click remediation, right there, in real time. This changed what Cloudways fundamentally was. It stopped being a passive dashboard you checked when something went wrong. It became a proactive teammate. And for the marketing team, that unlocked an entirely new vocabulary. They stopped talking about uptime. They started talking about self-healing infrastructure. The product had evolved from hosting into something the company began calling self-serve site reliability as a service. All of this buildup leads to the moment that validated the entire strategy. In August of 2022, DigitalOcean acquired Cloudways for $350 million. For DigitalOcean, the logic was clear. They needed a way to on-ramp less technical small businesses who found their raw infrastructure products, their droplets, too complicated to use directly. For Cloudways, this was the culmination of an underdog story. A bootstrapped company built out of Pakistan, competing successfully against giants, and winning on the strength of an idea about abstraction and empathy rather than raw infrastructure scale. So what do we take from this story? 3 lessons stand out. First, own the abstraction, not the infrastructure. Cloudways succeeded because they understood that in a commodity market, value doesn't sit with whoever owns the raw resource. It sits with whoever makes that resource usable. They didn't try to build better servers than AWS. They built a better experience of servers. Second, marketing is a research function, not just a broadcast function. Cloudways' best product features, billing automation, staging environments, the AI copilot itself, didn't originate in an engineering roadmap meeting in isolation. They came from a marketing team embedded deeply in the agency community, listening for pain points and routing that pain directly into product development. Third, friction is the enemy of growth. A free trial with no credit card required. A migration service that removed the burden of switching entirely. Cloudways understood that if you can eliminate the cost of trying something new, the product's own value will do the rest of the selling. Today, Cloudways serves more than 100,000 customers. Akib Gadat has since moved on to lead a venture builder focused on AI-native startups. But the blueprint he left behind still holds up. A company that bridged the gap between enterprise power and small business simplicity, and did it by treating its customers' pain as the most valuable market research available. As Gadat has put it, security and operations rarely fail from a lack of talent. They fail from a lack of leverage. Cloudways was built to be that leverage. And in giving thousands of agency owners their weekends back, it proved that the real product was never the servers at all. This was the marketing behind rapid growth. See you in the next episode.